Welcome to Fanfiction Audiobooks. Marvel, start to compete with Tony for property. Chapter 21 Ethan's Performance Test. As expected of a PhD in the Department of Physics, Ethan dismantled the G3 a few times, and he roughly understood the structure of the G3. After all, the G3 is still a mass-produced armor, but Lewis has improved the performance of the G3. Ethan, who can participate in the pure design, has accelerated the research and development progress of Lewis here a lot. Because there is already a rough idea, and there are few difficulties encountered during research and development. On the energy circuit, Lewis adopted a new design this time to reduce energy loss. Anyway, Tony has already made the arc reactor. If Lewis needs it, he can directly ask Tony for the design, and he can do it himself. This new energy circuit should be given to the army as a gift of friendship. After half a month of building, Kamen Rider Pure Armor was finally born. The three of them watched this first set of pure armor. Although it hadn't been painted and colored, it looked even colder. Ethan looked at this suit of armor excitedly, which was developed and manufactured by himself. "Ethan, try it on, let's go test it." There was no excitement on Lewis' face. This is just a mass-produced armor, and it still needs to pass the data test. Ethan looked at Lewis in surprise. He didn't expect that Lewis would let himself be the pure armor tester. This. Ethan was so excited that he felt like crying. Did Lewis trust me so much? As soon as Lewis saw Ethan's expression, he knew that this guy must have made up something in his head, and he was just thinking too much. The main reason why I don't wear it is because pure armor doesn't fit Lewis's aesthetics. At least that helmet is really eye-catching. But it's more convenient. This is in line with the characteristics of the armor required by the army. It is simple and convenient, and it is easier to put on and take off. Even Ethan can put on a full suit of armor in less than 1 minute and 50 seconds. June wearing the armor feels a bit heavy, but not as heavy as the G3. The pure armor is probably less than a third of the weight of the G3 armor. Trained soldiers can definitely wear it to fight, which guarantees combatability when there is no energy. Turning on the energy source, Ethan felt the power under his control, like an arm, very smooth. "Punch it," Louis yelled. A dynamometer was moved in front of Ethan. Ethan took a deep breath, facing the dynamometer, and punched out. Boom! The violent roar made both Lewis and Tony subconsciously cover their ears. Diddy! The red light on the dynamometer flashed continuously, and a number jumped out, 0.9 tons. How did this happen? Ethan was a little disappointed. He originally expected to have more than 1.2 tons, but now it is only 0.9 tons. This gap is too big. Lewis and Tony didn't show any disappointment. This statistic was within their imagination. You can't put a weak Ethan in armor to exert much strength. The value of 1.2 tons is calculated according to the standard of normal adults. Ethan is obviously not in this category. After a series of tests, Ethan crawled out of the armor dripping with sweat, and lay on the ground gasping for breath. Even though most of the power came from the energy supply, Ethan was still exhausted with every movement. The test of turning back 100 meters almost made Ethan faint. 100 meters 6.32. J.A.R.V.I.S broken number. Okay, great speed. Louis and Tony gave a high five. The test data are lower than expected. But the tester is Ethan, so the data will go up by 20 to 30%, which is almost the same as the expected data. Did it work? Ethan asked, panting, lying on the ground. It worked, Ethan, you did a great job. Lewis stepped forward, and pulled Ethan up with his hand. Seeing the numbers recorded on the display, Ethan wept with joy. The next step is to discuss cooperation with Roddy. Ethan, I will leave this kind of matter to you. From now on, you will be the deputy director of the Armor R&D department, and you will also contact Roddy. In this R&D department with only 2 people in total, Lewis handed everything over to Ethan. But Ethan wanted to refuse. No, but, come on, I'm optimistic about you. Lewis cheered and encouraged Ethan. Ethan looked at Tony for help, and then, Tony silently gave Ethan a cheering look, leaving Ethan alone wanting to cry without tears. Tony is developing Mark2, and Louis is working hard to upgrade from G3 to G3X. Neither of them wanted to lose to each other in the subsequent competition. Among the mansions on Mel Street, Obadiah received a package containing half a blueprint. Although the damage is serious, you can barely see the design facade inside, adhering to Tony's consistent design style. Yes, Tony's handwriting is correct. Obadiah can imagine if such a guy is made. Tony was sure to escape, too. But now that the blueprints are in my hands, Tony, you're ready to die. Stark Industries can only be mine, and everything you own is mine too. Both you and Lewis must die. Obadiah laughed wantonly, and connected the 10 Commandments gang's video call. Our cooperation can continue. I will deliver the ammunition you want, and send the drawings I want in the same way. Happy cooperation. Happy cooperation. Chapter 22 Mark2, Coherence Test. Clang clang clang. The sound of mechanical rotation became particularly obvious in the laboratory. Tony has been busy with the development of the Mark I for a while. After seeing Lewis come up with pure armor a few days ago, Tony seemed to be holding back his stomach fire. In addition to eating and sleeping, basically in the laboratory, going crazy. One can imagine how much stimulation Lewis brought to Tony. But it's all positive stimulation. The end result is the early release of Mark II. Pure silver metallic surgical, unpainted. But it seems that it already has some momentum of the future classic Mark3. Tony wears a synchronization device on his head, which is used to coordinate and synchronize with the armor. The whole body of the Mark II is made of metal. Even if it is made of light metal, the weight is amazing. It was a bit difficult for Lewis to wear it and walk, let alone Tony, a technical nerd. J.A.R.V.I.S. Activate the armor, activate the synchronization. Good job, sir. The armor is being activated, and the synchronization begins. With the blue light from the device on Tony's head, this proves that the synchronization is complete. Tony moved his wrist tentatively. Armor is also acting accordingly. Punch. Bounce. Run. A test is carried out constantly. Lewis is also observing the Mark II test. Although it has not yet been installed, the performance of the armor alone has shown infinite potential. Kamen Rider armor and Mark series armor are actually a bit like two extremes. Lewis uses his own strength to control the Kamen Rider armor, so he doesn't need a coherent device. Moreover, Lewis's fighting style is more inclined to close combat, punching to the flesh. The Mark series tends to firepower, high mobility, and technology first. Therefore, compared with the simple and crude test content of the Kamen Rider series, the test of the Mark series will be more complicated. After all, more control and deployment instructions are still required through the exclusive system of the Mark series. With the end of the last project test, Tony turned off the coherence device on his head, and Mark II also entered a dormant state. J.A.R.V.I.S. What's the coherence rate? Tony asked impatiently. 98.32%, the coherence rate is low when bouncing, running, and flying, and the error will be even greater in extreme environments. Tony frowned. This statistic was actually within his expectations. But still a little dissatisfied. Because the Kamen Rider developed by Lewis has no coherence rate at all, everything is controlled by Lewis. In other words, the coherence rate is always 100%. Combat power is also set according to Lewis himself. If Mark2 is only like this, then there is no advantage at all except being able to fly when facing G3. But just for flight, when faced with G3's fire coverage, Mark II's defense is a little worrying. After all, in order to be able to fly, the Mark II armor is made of light metal, which is prone to flaws under the coverage of firepower. Tony sighed, still a little too impatient. Do you want to fight? Only the actual combat will reveal bigger problems. Louis had a smirk. He wants to take advantage of the time when the Mark II is still in the research and development stage, and torture it once. Otherwise, after the finished product, it would be difficult for Louis to torture a flying Mark II. Tony's eyes lit up. What Louis said is not wrong, all the statistics are not as real as a fight. However, the laboratory can't bear such damage in the battle between the two of us. Louis didn't want to mess up the house. It's okay, Roddy and the others have a small base for testing weapons, let's go there. Tony said immediately. The military's test base is not in vain. J.A.R.V.I.S, contact Roddy for me, Tony yelled. Not long after, Roddy's voice sounded. Tony, it's rare for you to call me. Roddy, I need to borrow your military's test base. Is it a test base? No problem, you closed the weapon research and development department. Few people have passed there now. When will you come? Louis and I are going over now. Hey, wait, is Louis coming too? Yes, we'll be there soon. After speaking, Tony hung up the phone. Roddy doesn't seem to welcome me. Louis smirked. Is the psychological shadow I caused on Roddy a bit too big? If you restrain your personality a little, he will like you. Tony complained. Forget it. Louis didn't have the slightest interest in liking a big man. Not long after, Tony drove that aggressive red Audi R8 to the agreed place. Roddy had been waiting here for a while, and when he saw Louis appearing, Roddy subconsciously turned his face away. I really don't want to see Louis. Before Tony could say hello, Louis had already approached Roddy. Roddy, Ethan took the pure armor for testing, can you explain why the man hasn't been put back yet? Louis' tone had a hint of malice. Sorry, Mr. Louis, the test results are all satisfactory. The military's senior management is discussing the purchase of pure armor, but before that, in order to prevent the news from being leaked, we decided to let Mr. Ethan live in the Pentagon for a while. Please rest assured, the treatment we give is definitely the most luxurious. Roddy immediately explained, for fear of being misunderstood by Louis. He had already seen the big box that Louis was holding, with the letters G3 written on it. Louis actually brought that set of armor that looked like a demon descended into the world. If Louis killed wantonly like that day. Tick. The sweat on Roddy's forehead dripped to the ground. Chapter 23 Let's go together. Tony and Louis each moved a large box to Roddy's military off-road vehicle. A group of people started to go to the dedicated field test base. What's in those two boxes? Roddy was curious. He saw G3, but another mask-like logo that Roddy hadn't seen yet. One is G3, and the other is Mark2. We need a bigger place for actual combat testing. G3, Mark II. Roddy was stunned. G3, he still knows what it is. But what is Mark II? You'll know when the time comes, drive your car, talk a lot. Louis said impatiently, showing his bad temper again. At this moment, he is wearing a pair of special glasses, and the program of J.A.R.V.I.S is attached to the glasses. All kinds of data of G3 are in the eye, and the model analysis is being carried out. The relevant content of G3X, Louis has already entered into the archive. What I hate the most is when someone bothers me. Although the G3X is an upgrade version of the G3 in name, the enhancements are not just a little bit. Therefore, the idea of directly modifying the G3 was shattered. The actual data of G3X, the fist strength is 2.5 tons, the leg strength is 7.5 tons, the data is almost doubled. It's all about recreating an armor. Louis was no less stressed than Tony. As the prophet who guides the development of the plot, Louis knows very well that the Earth will not be peaceful in the next few months. Even with G3X, it was hard for Louis to feel safe. The off-road vehicle drove into the barren wilderness. There is a huge amounts of military base here. But few people are seen in action. Ever since it was known that Stark Industries' Weapon Research and Development Department was shut down, many people have been evacuated here one after another. But today is a bit lively. Because, there are many cars of military bosses parked in the base. What day is it today? It's so lively here. Tony asked jokingly. These cars are all from well-known figures in the military. Even when Stark Industries is testing weapons, it is rare to have such a grand event. I don't know, wait in the car, I'll go down and ask. Roddy got out of the car, ready to ask the soldiers guarding the gate what's going on here. Hello Colonel. Roddy is a regular visitor here, and the two soldiers saluted immediately when they saw Roddy. Soldier, what's going on in here? Roddy asked. Report to the Colonel, the armor test is going on inside. The soldier replied loudly. When Louis heard this word, his eyes rolled a few times, not knowing what he was thinking. Armor test? Looks like it's really on the same day. Louis' voice came slowly, startling Roddy. Mr. Louis, are you down? Come on, let's go in and have a look. Louis didn't answer Roddy's question, he was very interested in the military test now. He didn't yet know what kind of tests the military was going to do with pure armor. With Roddy's colonel's bodyguard, Louis got inside easily. The sound of bullets was heard not far away. Da-da-da-da. The continuous and dense bullets hit the pure armor, making a tinkling sound. This is definitely naked armor that no one wears. But Louis was also shocked by the military's violent means, it was really simple and rude. 18 submachine guns aimed at the armor and knocked out a box of bullets. Even the armor has a lot of dents. The dummies used for testing also have stress depressions ranging from large to small. Although there was nothing wrong with the armor, the impact of the bullet still affected the dummy. The test results have come out. The defense of this suit of armor is perfect. Under such a density of shooting, the people inside may be seriously injured, but they will definitely not die. Military researchers quickly made a judgment. Tony and Roddy came to Louis' side. How? Tony asked. Although he was not interested in cooperating with the military, after all, this was Louis' first contract, and Tony hoped that everything would go well. The armor I made is definitely fine. Louis was confident. Roddy, arrange a testing ground for us. Louis doesn't want to waste time here. Louis knows exactly how much ability pure armor has. As a standard armor, the basic data is a little better than the normal version of G3. But in the battle, Louis still prefers that G3 will win. After all, G3 has too many weapons and equipment. Roddy quickly arranged the venue, and Louis and Tony were ready to start testing. But I didn't expect a group of people to walk over, surrounded by a middle-aged man. I'm Lieutenant General Jason Wilson, you are the pure armor maker Louis Stark, you are really young, and your ability is comparable to that of your big brother. Lieutenant General Jason looked at Louis with satisfaction. Stark Industries really has a lot of talents, first there is Tony, and now there is another Louis. Such giants are the ones the military is ready to cooperate with. Mr. Lieutenant General isn't here to say these things, is he? Louis narrowed his eyes. This Lieutenant General appears here, so he won't come here to get clothes. Definitely not, it seems that you are also here to test the armor, do you want to add a pure armor test? Jason Wilson also wanted to see what kind of good guys Tony and Louis still have in their hands. Louis smiled. It turns out that this guy set his sights on Mark2 and G3. I want to test it out and find out. Looking for abuse? Louis likes these people who can't help but look for abuse when they come up. Definitely welcome, let's go together. Louis showed a good-natured smile, like the warm sunshine, extremely bright. Roddy shuddered. Appeared, appeared. The devil appeared again. Chapter 24, 1 vs. 2. Compared with G3 and pure manual wearing, MARK2 adopts automatic wearing. Some areas also need to be bolted. Jason Wilson shook his head in disappointment. This is not suitable for individual combat. Too much trouble. On the contrary, it was Louis' G3 that caught his eye. Whether it is metal texture or shape structure, G3 looks very aggressive. Louis put on the G3 and jumped a few times. Boom! Boom! The ground was trembling slightly, making noises. All soldiers who tested pure armor were dumbfounded. The weight of pure armor is more than 50 kilograms, and the G3 seems to be a little heavier, at least 2 to 3 times. But Louis was so relaxed without turning on the energy source. Roddy swallowed, and said in a deep voice, "This devil has become stronger again." The tester for the pure armor was a big black guy in the unit and looked pretty strong. Louis was a little thankful that he had absorbed Tony's advice and added a size adjuster, otherwise it would be really difficult for this guy to wear it. J.A.R.V.I.S. Activate synchronism. Synchronization completed. The arc reactor on the chest began to continuously provide energy for Mark II. Hum! Mark II let out a low roar. Tony experienced the actual installation for a while, and there was not much blockage, and it was almost consistent. With an error of a few %, only a machine can give such an accurate number. Tony looked at Louis, and asked in a deep voice, "Are you sure you want to fight too? Come here, don't cry when you lose." Louis smiled, his face under G3 was a little serious. The energy source of G3 starts to connect, and the energy tube starts to transmit energy. The originally calm G3 was like a volcano, and this moment seemed to contain great terror. "That's the power," Roddy murmured, feeling scared from the bottom of his heart. Pure armor also unlocks energy supplies. The sound effect as delicate as an electrician motor comes from Louis' bad taste. This comes from the boost engine that Louis puts on the pure armored legs. It can make the speed of pure soar to the extreme in the shortest time, and it can also make the speed of pure reach the previous test of 6.32 in 100 meters. Tony didn't speak, the mask of Mark II fell, and the coherence was instantly connected to the mask, and the data analysis was started. For a moment, G3 and pure data all appeared in front of Tony. The two attacked G3 with a tacit understanding. Whether it is Louis' request or G3's record, these are opponents that must be resolved in advance. The battle is imminent. It came just in time. Louis shouted loudly, and went up to him with bare hands. Fist for fist. MARK2 and G3 collided in strength. Boom! 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 Punch after punch. From the test of strength, simple and rough to the extreme, this is Louis' favorite way of fighting. Onlookers can even hear the sound of metal friction and collision, and even the sound of twisting shape-shifting. The right hand is 32.63% damaged, and the left hand is 16.19% damaged. J.A.R.V.I.S. quickly calculated the damage of Mark II. The two sides collided dozens of punches. On the surface, it looks evenly matched, but the body of the Mark II has undergone shape-shifting and has been damaged. When G3 and MARK2 collided, Chun also quickly identified the opportunity and rushed towards G3. This is a good chance. The pure tester didn't think about how to kill G3 with one hit. He is very clear about his advantage, which is to use his speed to slowly consume G3. With the MARK2 front pull, the pure living space will be much better. Humph! Louis sneered. "I have been on guard against you for a long time." As the pure armor developed by Louis knows all about its characteristics and values, so how could he be unprepared? Speed can be said to be the biggest advantage of pure armor. But this kind of guerrilla warfare is really embarrassing. The Kamen Rider series has always been punching to the flesh, and the OB style of this tester is really a bit embarrassing. Do you think I set such a high leg strength for pure just to let you run? Louis was dissatisfied, and energy poured into his right fist in a short time. Get out of the way! Louis shouted. The power of the right hand increased instantly. Even Tony was caught off guard, and Mark II was sent flying upside down. Bang! The sound of parts falling made everyone's expressions change. The Mark2 armor actually fell into a disadvantage in the collision with G3, and even the body was destroyed. Tony's face was a little ugly. Did he lose? But he didn't have time to think. G3 turned around beautifully, and met Chun, who was about to attack. Sneak attack? Hee hee. Louis mocked with a smile. Energy was poured into the left arm again, and another punch was blasted out. The pure tester could only watch the iron fist appear, and flew into the air in the next second. How can it be so fast? No one could see clearly the speed of Louis punching. It felt like G3's movements became faster at that moment. Boom! The pure armor fell heavily to the ground. It turned out to be instantly killed. Complete abuse, no room to fight back. A large group of people immediately swarmed up and dragged the tester out. There was still a little panic on the big black man's face. After being instantly killed by G3, he still hasn't recovered a bit. After all, Mark2 collided with G3 for so long, and he was killed in seconds? Simply unimaginable. The blue and silver battle armor stood still, like a god of war. After a while, slowly raised his left arm, made a gesture of victory, and then retracted his index finger. A middle finger. A pillar of support. You scumbags! Chapter 25 Overload under Invincibility. Is this the end? Several major general-level figures looked at G3, who was showing off his might, with a hint of excitement in their eyes. G3 looks much stronger than Pure. Jason Wilson also took a meaningful look at G3, and shook his head when he saw Pure again. With G3 jewels in front, Pure naturally loses its appeal. Louis touched G3's armor and stepped out. Immediately surrounded by a group of military bosses. Mr. Louis, I wonder if this G3 armor can work? Jason Wilson asked immediately. The shock that G3 brought to them was too powerful. That kind of power can kill Pure in one move. Louis shook his head, and said in a frivolous tone, don't think about it. It's natural that the G3 is powerful, but the cost is beyond your reach, so Pure armor is the most suitable standard armor for the army. If it is G3, your military expenditure may not be enough. The meaning clearly expressed in Louis' words is 1. You poor bastards! Just buying a Pure armor from this group of bigwigs would take so many days to discuss. Louis knew that this group of people were poor. Then there is nothing to say. Jason Wilson and the others couldn't understand what Louis said, but what Louis said was the truth. The military's operations in some conflicting countries, even with advanced weapons, still have not achieved very good results. Cuts in military spending have also made life difficult for them. Louis no longer paid any attention to these poor gangsters. Walking to Tony's side, Mark II's armor has been removed. The damaged place is not serious, and it can be repaired by replacing some parts. Tony was a little disappointed. Mark2 failed in the first battle, which made Tony a little reconciled. When he saw Louis, Tony just couldn't beat it. Yo, brother Tony, you won't cry for me because of a failure, will you? Louis swayed in front of Tony very embarrassingly. In the contest between the two sides, no matter who loses, the other side will go up and ridicule it. But obviously, most of Louis's ridicule. Tony wanted to say something, but seeing Louis frantically blinking and winking at himself, Tony finally let out a helpless sigh. Well, I won't expose you in full view. Tony put away the Mark II. Today's actual combat test has been completed, and there is no point in staying here. Mr. Wilson, we're leaving first. Tony greeted. In the end, the people in the military had no choice but to choose Pure. What else can I do? You can only blame yourself for not having money. Lieutenant General Jason Wilson nodded, seeing Louis' leisurely expression, he could only smile wryly. One day, I must equip the army with G3. This became Jason Wilson's obsession. Let this embarrassing Louis dare to mock himself for being poor. On the buggy, Tony scowled, glaring at Louis. Roddy, who was driving, didn't dare to speak. The atmosphere in the car was very strange until now. Hans, are you okay? Tony asked coldly. Louis winced subconsciously, but Tony grabbed it anyway. The hands, which were so delicate and slender that women would envy them, are now disastrously red and swollen. Ha 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 ha, it's okay. Fortunately, I used the freezing spray in time, otherwise the scene would be discovered. Louis said haha, trying to fool him. G3's damage is also serious. Tony pressed. Tony didn't bother to talk to Louis, the guy who asked for trouble, should let him lie at home for a few more days with some injuries. Both arms are crippled, but they can't be seen from the outside. Louis nodded. The previous overload mode of pure armor was applied to G3 by Louis. However, no tests have been conducted. If it is not for those who want to use crushing to attract the military, Louis does not intend to apply it. The result now is that G3's two arms are completely scrapped. Carrying so much power all at once, it's strange not to waste it. Actually, there is no need to do this. When I first took over Stark Industries, I could only cooperate with the military because I was isolated and helpless, but now I don't need it. Tony explained. He could tell something was wrong when he was on the scene. G3's data had always been under the control of J.A.R.V.I.S, but the value suddenly skyrocketed to nearly double. One punch knocked Mark II back, and then another punch killed Pure. No matter how you look at it, it is impossible. As expected, Louis was playing tricks, and he wanted to show his strength even if G3 was damaged. I want to use G3 as a bargaining chip to allow the military to continue to cooperate with Stark Industries. It doesn't matter. Maintaining cooperation with the military is also good for us. At least next time I go racing at high speed, I can continue to ask the military to solve it. Roddy, who was driving, was feeling cold at the moment. I am still a member of the military. Is it really okay for you to talk about this in front of me so blatantly? Oh, suddenly I remembered, is there a military person in our car? Colonel Roddy, you won't give away what we said, will you? Louis' tone fell lightly in Roddy's ears, creepy. I didn't hear anything, I didn't know anything. Roddy closed his eyes and said loudly. Sorry, it's not that I don't want to say it. Louis is really terrible, this man, he even threatened me. Under duress, Roddy consciously admitted his identity as an accomplice. Chapter 26 The relationship between negative centimeters. Obadiah, I have something here that I thought would interest you. What? Beeb. An email has been received in your mailbox. Obadiah subconsciously opened the attached video in the email. Only a short 10 seconds. Inside is a battle. A blue-silver armor fights both an unpainted silver-gray armor and white's armor. On the chest of the blue-silver armor, the two big characters G3 are very conspicuous. And the silver-gray armor was built in the same style as the drawings obtained from the Ten Commandments gang. The battle begins. The video also stops abruptly here. The voice on the phone seemed to have timed Obadiah to read the email. How is it? Are you interested? What do you want to do? I want the blue and silver armor. Whether you steal it, grab it, or build it yourself, I want to see it. I don't even know who the owner of the blue-silver armor is. No way, this is the armor made by your two good nephews, you, and uncle, don't know anything about it. The voice on the other end of the phone seemed a little surprised. Obadiah's eyes became serious. He really didn't know that Louis and Tony had built such armor without making a fuss. He is indeed my good nephew. Tony. Louis. How long are you going to hide it from me? No way, I guessed it right, or did your nephew exclude you from Stark Industries management? It seems that I have found the wrong person, just pretend that I have never called. The person on the other end of the phone was a little disappointed and was about to hang up. But Obadiah's eyes sank instantly, and he said in a deep voice, "What do you want to do? It seems that we can cooperate. I heard that after the Weapon Research and Development Department was closed, you gathered many professionals in the Weapon Research and Development Department. I just need that G3, whether it's the original version, or you can build it after you get the data. If possible, I think we can have a long-term cooperation. I provide the funds and you provide the armor." Obadiah was silent for a moment, and said, "Tell me your identity." "All I can say is, I'm from the military." Obadiah was silent and did not answer, he was considering the benefits of this matter for himself. There was no response from the other end of the phone for a long time, sighed, and said softly, "It seems that I refused." Obadiah coughed softly and said, "I agree, happy cooperation." Then, happy cooperation. After hanging up the phone, Obadiah stared at the video and watched it several times. But all his attention was focused on the energy reactor on Mark II's chest. There was also something like this on Tony's drawing before. Tony marked energy in this area. Obadiah had never been able to figure out what the energy on Tony's drawings meant, but now he thought of the strange contraption on Tony's chest. Obadiah finally got the point. This is the most critical step missing in the Iron Overlord that I built. As for the G3, if people in the military want it, then give it to the military. But Tony's arc reactor, I have to decide. In Tony's mansion, Louis watched as Tony rebuilt the arc reactor, one for himself and the other for Louis to use. As for the old piece, Tony was going to throw it away. "Well, to be honest, I haven't tried putting my hand into someone's chest." Louis looked at Tony with disgust. "This sounds a bit disgusting, are you sure you want me to come? How about another person, Pepper?" Louis tries to avoid such things, and puts his hands in Tony's chest. "Fuck it. Why does it feel a little hairy on the back? Pepper may not accept such intimate contact." Tony said with some regret. "No one will accept it, do you think I can accept it?" Louis said a little frantically. "I really hate it. Why must it be me? If you change to Pepper, isn't it all the same? Stop complaining, I don't want to be you, but the only people I can trust are you and Pepper." There was a rare relief in Tony's eyes. Well, I'm glad you said that, though. But reluctance. You begged me to do it." Louis babbled so much that Tony wanted to get up and beat him up. Louis picked up a new arc reactor and took the old reactor off Tony's chest. The moment he was pushed out, Tony's face turned pale. Louis speeded up. As Louis, who had developed 2 sets of armor, his hands were shaking when he installed the reactor. If one was not careful, Tony would be bye-bye. When the new arc reactor was successfully connected, Louis rushed out of the laboratory without saying a word. "I'm going to wash my hands, the rest is fixed, you do it yourself." This is the first time I have had a negative centimeter relationship with a man. It's disgusting. Louis rushed into the bathroom, washing his hands frantically. "Louis, if you say such misleading words again, you can get lost and sleep on the road." Tony's originally good mood was instantly destroyed by Louis. Chapter 27 The Profitable Merchant Louis. Louis washed his hands 5 times repeatedly and sterilized them with disinfectant. "You might as well soak your hands in hydrogen peroxide for a while," Tony grumbled. "That can't be done, my hands are used to make a Kamen Rider." Louis immediately vetoed Tony's proposal. Tony put on his clothes, and the new reactor on his chest was shining with white light, which was a little conspicuous. "It really looks like Yajichuo's high beam." Louis saw the glow of the arc reactor, and suddenly thought of a Jichuo. It's a pity that the evolution of a Jichuo came from the power of ancient light. If Louis wants to build a Jichuo armor, he needs to find similar power. What agito? Tony asked curiously. No, nothing. Louis shook his head. The damaged G3 armor was placed on the repair table, and Louis manipulated the mechanical arm to start repairing the G3 armor. Although preparing to build G3X, but for G3, Louis still hopes to give it a perfect retirement. Tony also knew about Louis' idea of building a new armor. Mark2 was a little reluctant when facing G3, although it was caused by Tony's forced choice of toughness. But if you lose, and there is no way to justify it. So, next, Tony has a new plan. Now that Louis G3X is ready to leave, Mark III naturally has to hurry up. When the time comes to learn the lessons of Mark II, Mark III will become even stronger. When the building is completed, Tony is ready to challenge Louis G3X again. Ethan was released 3 days later, and brought back a list of 30 sets of pure armor from the army. According to a set price of 3.5 million, this is a big order of nearly 100 million. When building pure, Louis tried to use cheaper alloys as much as possible, and it was the kind that was easy to obtain and replace. The cost of a set of pure is around 800,000. Louis felt that his price had more than quadrupled, and he was really quite conscientious. The only pity is that the military's order is a bit small. This made Louis a little dissatisfied. Why, feel less? Tony saw what Louis was thinking when he saw Louis' expression. It's a little bit. According to my calculations, the military has a shortfall of more than 100 sets, but now only 30 sets have been ordered. It may be to test the water. But it doesn't matter. When they have almost purchased, I will launch the G3 mass production version, and then I can make another profit. Louis didn't panic in the slightest. He was making money, he was cheating, and he didn't shudder. What's more, it's still money from the military, so there's no problem. Ethan and Tony heard Louis talking to himself, and shouted in unison, "Profit!" I really don't know if Lieutenant General Jason Wilson will have a cerebral hemorrhage after knowing Louis' plan. Back to the lab. With the addition of Ethan, Louis quickly completed the restoration of G3. Started the research and development of G3X. As an advanced version of G3, the data of G3X has doubled, and it also has a rich arsenal. That is to say, what Louis wants to build this time is not only the G3X armor, but also the exclusive arsenal equipped with it. To ask which weapon is stronger, Marvel New York Stark. This is not a joke. Although the Weapon Research and Development Department was shut down by Tony's brain fever, many researchers still stayed in Stark Industries. Louis applied to Tony to use these people to create exclusive weapons for his G3X, and the weapons for the Kamen Rider armor that he plans to build in the future can also be handed over to them. Tony thought for a while and said, "But you have to make sure that these weapons don't fall into the hands of evil people." Louis's eyes lit up, he patted his thigh, and suddenly realized, "You reminded me, I need to create a recognition program for these armors. Only me and the people I give permission can use, otherwise it will explode." Louis thought of Obadiah. Those ambitious people must have coveted these armors. Even the military is no exception. Louis has seen many high-level military officials with greed in their eyes. It's better to be careful. Tony also agrees with Louis' idea that it is best to let the armor have a self-identification function. After reaching an agreement in this regard, Louis began to notify the members of the original Weapon Research and Development Department to join his own Armor Research and Development Department. But few responses were received. After some investigation, Louis discovered a strange problem. That is, the members of the original Stark Industries Weapon Research and Development Department. After the dissolution, they were basically poached away. Only a few old employees remained, and there was no intention of leaving. This is a premeditated poaching. Louis said in a deep voice, looking at the people who left. It's normal. Tony was not surprised. No, this is completely abnormal. It was premeditated and he knew the situation of every employee. Louis' eyes darkened. Some people dare to dig their own people, don't they want to live? Moreover, in Stark Industries, except for a few shareholders, there is no one else who has this kind of ability. Louis suspected Obadiah immediately. After all, this guy has a criminal record. Obadiah, I fucked you for messing with you. But Louis really guessed right this time. At this moment, Obadiah has started the research on the Iron King in his factory. The researchers were dug out of the weapons R&D department. Chapter 28 The Birth of Iron King and Mark 3. If Obadiah really did it, what did he want these researchers to do? Build your own weapons and start a smuggling business? Louis is more inclined to this possibility in his heart. If it's just a weapon business, then let's count it as a legitimate business. Louis didn't bother with him either. Right now, it is more important to complete the G3X. Arc reactor exudes soft light, in the dark night, like the most brilliant gem. Louis looked at the arc reactor carefully. Under the soft appearance, there is a murderous intent of radioactive elements. Tony, you use the palladium element to make the arc reactor. If you use it for a long time, you will also be poisoned by the palladium element. Louis asked. What was proven in the original play, Louis said it was just to make Tony be vigilant. Relax, not all radioactive elements can cause heavy metal poisoning, at least I look good now, don't I? Tony said with a smile when he heard Louis' words. He felt that Louis was a little concerned and confused. Palladium is often used as a related element in the Stark industry, and palladium poisoning rarely occurs. What's more, arc reactor is also radioactively isolated. As long as you don't get in close contact with the palladium element, there will be no problem. Ethan also echoed. Louis looked at the two suspiciously, as if he had overlooked some key points. Now, Tony still uses the arc reactor, but later redesigned the small arc reactor for convenience. That is to say, it is an insert-type design reactor, in which palladium metal plates can be inserted into inserts to provide energy. Intimate contact should have occurred at that time. Louis smiled, feeling that he was really a little concerned and confused. What he wants to think about now is how to combine arc reactor and G3X. Enjoy an unlimited firepower mode with no mana consumption. In the laboratory, the three people got busy again. The two armors are also taking shape bit by bit. At the same time, Obadiah's private factory. Under the huge amounts of the jack, a gigantic figure like a colossus was quietly sleeping. When the energy supply was activated, the giant's figure began to move slowly, and every movement brought huge amounts of oppression. Such a body, such a weight. Even just standing there is a great threat. Boom! Boom! Every time the Iron Overlord moved forward, the ground trembled. In the laboratory, some researchers couldn't stand still and fell to the ground in embarrassment. In the voltage monitoring room, countless voltmeters began to soar rapidly. Beep beep! The detector issued a red alarm. Beep! Come on! The transformer was overwhelmed and made a series of electric current beeping sounds. There was even an electric current running around, and the street lights around the factory began to flicker, and finally fell into darkness. The surrounding neighborhoods also began to experience voltage instability. A massive power outage began to spread to the surrounding area. It was pitch black inside the factory. This is the source, and the blackout is also the first to be completed here. Iron King, who lost his power supply, returned to sleep mode. In the dark, there was unstoppable excitement on Obadiah's face. The power of the Iron Overlord is far beyond his imagination. In Obadiah's view, the Iron Overlord is definitely far more than the three armors in the video. What are those three armors? Obadiah showed a sneer. As long as the Iron Overlord has sufficient energy, no matter how much armor there is, he will not be afraid. Da-da-da! Obadiah tapped his fingers lightly on the table, and it seemed he needed to have a good chat with Tony. In the sky, Mark III completed its first test flight. Tony, who has experienced the Mark-II test flight, feels faster and smoother this time. Mark-III is the direct upgrade version of Mark-II, and Tony has done a lot of optimization upgrades. For example, beam cannons are added to the chest and palms, small missiles are added to the shoulders and wrists, and the propulsion devices on the legs and feet make the Mark III more flexible in the air. Titanium alloy steel ensures the free movement of Mark-III at high altitude and low temperature. How do you feel? Lewis asked. Mark III's visor opened, revealing Tony's iconic smile. It's great, Lewis. I think you should also equip the G3X with air combat ability. The feeling in the sky is great. Tony said with some excitement. Although he didn't understand why Lewis insisted on land combat armor, there was no doubt that he liked Mark III's combat method better. During this time, the only thing Tony wanted to understand was not to compare with Lewis' strengths. The battle of Mark III should be in the sky. Hearing Tony's words, Lewis shook his head without any excuse. In air combat, you can rely on air combat tools. But any battle will eventually evolve into a land battle. Louis knew there were some things he couldn't discuss with Tony, but there was no harm in sticking to the land battle. Tony unloaded the Mark III with an unstoppable expression. I just circled New York, and New York at night is so beautiful, I think I can fly with Pepper. I also saw Obadiah's factory. There seemed to be a power outage there. It seems that he has been very unlucky recently. Listening to Tony bragging about what he saw and heard on the air, Louis just watched Tony quietly. Wait. G3X will be finished soon, and I will let you know when the time comes. Your uncle, or your uncle. Chapter 29 Obadiah's Hungmen Banquet. Tony's words didn't alarm Louis. He really didn't have time to pay attention to Obadiah. The left and right were just an ant that could be crushed to death at will. Power failure? Yen, isn't it normal for a block to have a power outage? Lewis, when will G3X be completed? I remember that you have already installed it not long ago. Tony looked at Lewis curiously. The result of that installation was perfect. However, the armor is actually installed, and there are no exclusive weapons. The G3X has too many exclusive weapon arsenals. Even if members with the original Armed Research and Development Department join, the progress is still a bit slow. The armor was originally fine, but the arsenal is too much, and it will take a little bit of time. I heard it can be done tomorrow. Then we must have a good fight. Tony still wanted to get revenge with a punch. Wait and see how I abuse you. Lewis said contemptuously. Tony wanted to argue, but J.A.R.V.I.'s voice suddenly rang out. Sir, Mr. Obadiah's call. Obadiah. Tony and Louis muttered at the same time. What is Obadiah calling at this time? Tony and Louis looked at each other, neither of them wondering what Obadiah's purpose was. Last time, it was basically a breakup. Obadiah, is this hitting a wall again? Line connected. Soon, Obadiah's voice came from the other end of the phone. Tony, I think we need to have a good chat. Obadiah tried to hide his true emotions as much as possible. What are you talking about? Obadiah uncle, you should talk, haven't we already talked about it before? Tony sneered. His relationship with Obadiah, because of the Stark Industries thing, is getting more and more rigid. He is also not prepared to continue to have any intersection with Obadiah. I think we can reconsider the issue of the Weapons Research and Development Department. People from the military approached me to reopen the Weapons Research and Development Department, Obadiah said. Tony was silent. If the military was involved, this matter would not be easy. Louis felt something was wrong, but couldn't put it into words. So, I invite you to my house tomorrow, let's have a good meal and chat. Tony was about to speak, but Louis grabbed his wrist. Louis looked at Tony and shook his head. He didn't know what the plot was, but Louis didn't believe Obadiah's kindness. Tony gave Louis a reassuring look. If you don't go, you'd be cowardly. Could he, Tony Stark, be a coward? I'll be there on time. Then I'll prepare the red wine from Arden Manor and wait for you. Obadiah hung up the phone, pumping his fists excitedly. Tony, your time has finally come. I will show you how powerful the Iron Overlord is. Let you be the first to feel the power of Iron King. Call disconnected. Louis looked at Tony puzzled, and said, Why did you agree? You have no idea what's waiting for you in Obadiah. Don't worry, it's fine, I can take the Mark III with me, it'll be fine. Tony said relaxedly. But Louis still wanted to dissuade. But Tony interrupted Louis, and said seriously, as long as there is Mark III, I am invincible. After the Mark III was developed, Tony felt a little ecstatic. Louis felt that he had to give Tony a hard time. What if Tony drifts away? Just a good beat. Tony left, Mark III was installed successfully, he needed to drink a glass of red wine to celebrate. Come together, for Mark III. Tony said with a smile. Louis nodded and followed. Today is the day Mark III was born, maybe I shouldn't disappoint him. Even if Obadiah has some tricks, Louis swears, he will never let this kind of joker succeed. I was thinking of looking for an opportunity to crush you. Obadiah, don't you bring it up yourself. Louis' gaze became icy cold, and the aura on his body could almost kill people. Feeling Louis' aura, Ethan shrank his head. Not talking. He could see that Louis was very angry now, and he was just suppressing his anger. To celebrate the successful installation of Mark III, Tony, who was about to drink some wine, got completely drunk. Drunk as hell. Louis was also a little drunk and didn't wake up until noon the next day. Tony was like a pig, sleeping soundly. Only Ethan had woken up and was staying in the laboratory. Ethan, I'll leave it to you, I'll go to the Armor Research and Development Department. Louis has a sense of urgency in his heart, and he needs to quickly install the G3X completely. The original Weapon Research and Development Department was changed to the Armor Research and Development Department. The cold-killing machine G3X stands quietly in the center. How many exclusive weapons are left unfinished? Louis asked. Mr. Louis, the only exclusive weapon left is the ultra-high-frequency oscillating sword, which is still under development. We still can't achieve further frequency breakthroughs, and the lethality is not much stronger than before. The researchers came over and handed the test data to Louis. Leave this to me, and you load other weapons onto the G3X. Louis looked at the data in his hand and decided to strengthen the UHF oscillating sword by himself. In Tony's villa. Tony woke up in a daze, and glanced at the time, it was already past 5 in the afternoon. Sir, Mr. Obadiah has called 3 times. J.A.R.V.I.S.S. voice sounded. Respond to the message and I'll be right there. Tony got up, he needed to take a shower to refresh himself. Then, go to Obadiah's house for an appointment. Ethan knew that Tony was about to leave, and immediately called Louis. This is Louis' request. Buzz buzz. Buzz buzz. Cell phones buzzed on shelves in the lab. But Louis, who was focused on the progress of the UHF oscillating sword upgrade, didn't notice these sounds at all. Chapter 30 The Corrected World Line. Tony's car parked firmly in front of Obadiah's house. Obadiah waited eagerly, and finally waited for Tony's arrival, and almost ran out to meet Tony. Tony, it's really been a long time since we haven't seen you this time, and I haven't seen you in the company. Obadiah rushed up and hugged Tony. It made Tony want to push Obadiah away. If Louis encountered this kind of thing, he would basically kick him out and say sorry, I'm not interested in men indifferently. However, considering that Obadiah is a shareholder of Stark Industries, Tony still endured it. But Obadiah's enthusiasm still made Tony feel that something was wrong. But when he thought of the Mark III on the back seat of his car, Tony's mood calmed down. Obadiah uncle, let's get down to business. Tony countered coldly. Don't worry, let's eat first. Obadiah said enthusiastically. Tony assures that even Obadiah couldn't have been this enthusiastic when he met the man of his dreams. Just wanted to punch him in the face, Tony thought grimly. The other side. Ethan has called Tony nearly 30 times. But no one answered all the time. Mr. Lewis, what are you doing now? Ethan thought anxiously. In the end, he decided to go to the armor R&D department to find Lewis. However, Louis's phone call came. What's the matter? Has Tony already made an appointment? Lewis didn't realize it was nearly 6 o'clock until he subconsciously glanced at the time just now. Looking at the phone, more than 30 missed calls were all from Ethan. Yes, Mr. Lewis, Tony has already attended the appointment. Ethan said immediately. Tony's gaze was icy cold. The loading progress of the UHF oscillating sword was only 37%, and it was too late. It doesn't matter, there is no UHF oscillating sword, relying on other weapons is enough to deal with it. Ethan, you come to the armor R&D department now, wait until the UHF oscillating sword is loaded, and send it to me immediately. After Lewis finished speaking, he hung up the phone. He is now going to take G3X to see what kind of conspiracy Obadiah is up to. Tony ordered a Coke because of his hangover. Obadiah's face was not very good, and he had one drink after another with Tony. Obadiah uncle, now we can talk about business. Tony looked at Obadiah warily. Tony, the device on your chest is a miniature version of the arc reactor in the military factory. Although Obadiah questioned it, he spoke in an affirmative tone. He was pretty sure that this was a scaled-down version of the arc reactor. Tony clutched his chest subconsciously, but didn't retort. What is Obadiah's purpose? Seeing Tony's reaction, Obadiah smiled. He finally showed his ugly face and reached out to grab Tony's chest. Tony tried to push away, only to realize his body was losing strength. What are you trying to do? Tony asked coldly. Obadiah really had a conspiracy, but Tony never imagined that his purpose was to seize the arc reactor. There are ready-made ones in the Stark military factory. What does Obadiah want this for? I want to be dictator. Obadiah laughed. He took out the arc reactor on Tony's chest. Look, what a fascinating light, this is the world's top energy technology, with it, you can dominate the world. But both of you father and son are of the same virtue. Your father wants to create sustainable energy to change the world, but you actually use it to sustain life? Ridiculous, absurd. Tony, I'll show you what the arc reactor really does. Obadiah took the arc reactor and left quickly, the Iron King needed it very much now. Tony watched Obadiah leave, feeling his body go cold. The feeling of death came over him, and he could hardly breathe. He now regrets why he didn't listen to Lewis and put himself in danger. Obadiah's conspiracy is definitely more than that, he definitely has a bigger plan, an arc reactor is just an indispensable key in it. Tony struggled to get out his phone and call Louis. But now he can't even move. Silver lightning gallops down the street. Master's vital signs are declining. J.A.R.V.I.S. reported Tony's condition. Damn it, it must be the arc reactor, Obadiah took the arc reactor. Louis cursed. Tony didn't even make the Mark I, what does Obadiah need the arc reactor now? He used his head to build the Iron Overlord? Is it difficult for the world to consider rationality in order to prevent itself from changing the world line? Lewis really wants to see what is in the brain of this world and the universe. But right now, it was more important to get Tony back. Tony's location is in Obadiah's villa in the Mel block. When Lewis arrived, he saw Tony's Audi R8 parked at the door, and the armor of Mark III was placed in the back seat. Lewis rushed into Obadiah's villa quickly. Forcibly broke in. Alarm! Alarm! Someone broke in! Someone broke in! The alarm issued a red light alarm. Boom! Louis smashed it with a punch. First floor, no one. On the second floor, Tony sat on a chair by the balcony with a pale face. There is a hole in the chest, the arc reactor has been taken by Obadiah. Tony's consciousness gradually fell into a coma. Louis immediately took out the old-fashioned reactor that he had not discarded. They were all going to be thrown away, but Louis kept them just in case. Sure enough, the world would still correct the changes Louis brought about. The arc reactor was mounted back on Tony's chest, and Tony gasped. He really almost saw Death God. Louis, I should have listened to you, Obadiah took my arc reactor. He must have other plans, go and stop him, Tony said immediately. Boom! Boom! The ground is trembling, obviously a big guy is coming here. Louis sighed, and said helplessly, no, he's already here. Chapter 31 The Iron Turtle. Huge amounts of tremors caused this multi-million-dollar villa to crumble. A giant-like figure is walking towards here. Don't think about it, it is definitely the Iron Overlord. Louis was puzzled, Tony's physical Mark I didn't show up, how did you, the Iron King, come out? The Iron Overlord, which was 2 stories tall, was looking at Tony and Louis on the second floor. Obadiah's voice came from within. See, Tony, this is the real usage of the arc reactor, I am the Iron King, I am the dictator. Obadiah laughed wantonly, and the Iron Overlord struck out. One punch destroyed the second floor of the villa. Fortunately, Louis reacted quickly and dragged Tony aside. Fuck, is this old bald man sick? Demolish his house. Louis looked coldly at the huge amounts of Iron Overlord. It doesn't look any different from the original. However, in the original play, the Iron Overlord was killed only by relying on the large arc reactor. Fuck it. Where the hell are you going to find the arc reactor? Call for Pepper to deliver? Hey, Pepper, can you send me the arc reactor? It is the arc reactor that weighs 36.17 tons. Mr. Louis, fuck your arc reactor, I quit. Louis shuddered and withdrew his brain supplement. That's really not realistic. Have you felt the power of the Iron King? Tony, and Louis, you all have to die today. Obadiah looked at the 2 people who had no resistance to ability, laughed, and manipulated the Iron King to attack the 2 people again. Louis dragged Tony away again, but there were fewer and fewer places to hide on the second floor for Fang Yu. Let's go downstairs, Mark III is in the car. Tony said, regaining some strength. Louis looked outside, the Iron Overlord who was about to destroy the villa. Spit out. I'll distract him, and you'll put on Mar 3. Louis and Tony fled to the first floor, Louis found a place, and quickly replaced the G3X. The upgraded G3X still has the same appearance as the G3, but the material has been replaced with a lightweight high metal material. With increased strength, the weight is still much lighter than before. Tony looked at Louis and nodded emphatically. Louis never thought that the first show of G3X would be against a big guy like Iron King. The blue and silver G3X came out of the ruins. The Scorpio in your hand is ready to go. It crazily fired at Iron Overlord's shell, making tinkling and colliding sounds. Although it didn't do a lot of real damage, it still caught the attention of Iron Bully. Obadiah sneered at the tiny G3X, the one in the video. But it looks like there have been some changes. Is there an X more than the original G3? It still looks weak and vulnerable. Obadiah's attention was attracted by G3X. Controlling Iron Overlord, he is going to smash G3X into a pile of scrap iron first. As for Tony, let him witness the death of his brother. Scorpio's bullets had no effect on Iron Overlord at all. That layer of outer armor is really too hard. What Iron Overlord, why don't you just change your name to Iron Turtle? Louis mocked. Feeling helpless in his heart, Scorpio has never considered using it to deal with this kind of enemy. He is covered in iron armor and his defense is ridiculously high. In the corner of Louis' vision, Tony had already moved to the side of his car and opened the door. But Obadiah found out, too. Seeing the Mark III in the box, Obadiah seemed to have seen something novel. "Is this what you've been doing all this time? Tony, you're weak." Obadiah controls the Iron Lord, and he doesn't want another nimble enemy. Iron Overlord's defense is sufficient, but his speed is pitifully slow. "I want to say, have you forgotten me?" G3X took advantage of the Iron Tyrant's stunned effort and jumped onto the Iron Tyrant's shoulder. "Salamander has been installed on top of Scorpius. Try this," Louis said. The salamander aimed at the Iron King's side face, breathing howitzers. Boom! Howitzers exploded at close range, creating a red glow in midair. Even people from other parts of New York saw the scene here. This is bound to be tomorrow's headlines. Louis wanted to live to see what the papers would say tomorrow. Tony's heart tightened. He saw G3X fall from the sky. The shockwave that exploded at close range made it impossible for G3X to stand firm on Iron Bully. Boom! G3X fell heavily to the ground, and Louis rolled on the ground a few times with the help of inertia, and only then did he remove the impact. "How? Killed him?" Tony yelled. "Call." Before Tony could finish his sentence, a huge amount of palm waved out in the smoke and dust of the explosion, almost sucking the air dry. Iron Overlord was a little embarrassed. The armor on his side face was severely damaged, and some parts were melted by high temperature. But such an injury is not a big problem for Iron Overlord. "You're pissing me off, Louis, you bloody bug." Obadiah was annoyed, and chased after Louis to attack. Every time he stepped on the ground, every time he punched, the surrounding houses were completely destroyed. "Nyapai, why don't you join the demolition team? You definitely have a future," Louis taunted while avoiding the attack. Obadiah was about to go crazy, and the only thing left in his mind was to kill Louis. Tony also took advantage of this time to wear Mark III. "Welcome back, sir," J.A.R.V.I.S said immediately. "I'm glad you're here, too," Tony said with a relieved smile. Mark III flew into the air, and the beam cannon in the palm of the hand aimed at the huge body of the Iron King and began to bombard it indiscriminately. Louis took the opportunity to stay away from the Iron Overlord and breathed a sigh of relief. The Iron Tortoise couldn't be beaten, and if he touched it, it would vomit blood. In the bombardment of the beam cannon, the Iron Overlord resisted the beam cannon with one hand and rushed towards Mark III. "Be careful!" Louis shouted. Tony had been prepared for a long time, and the Mark III was lifted into the air in an instant, and the distance was opened. The Iron Overlord couldn't take a single blow. He hammered his chest angrily, and vented his dissatisfaction to the sky. Chapter 32 I have a sword that can cut the sun, the moon, the stars, and even old bastards. Seeing that the Iron Bully, who had resisted the beam cannon, was safe and sound, Tony also changed color slightly. "Tony, it looks like your beam cannon isn't doing too well either." Louis started to taunt, and even his teammates couldn't survive. "Stop talking nonsense, do what you want, and give him a few more from your howitzer." Tony had a cold face. Beam cannons are not as effective as howitzers when facing this kind of Iron King. But during the test, the energy level of the beam cannon was actually higher than that of the howitzer. Therefore, it can only show that when the Iron Overlord was built, he had already considered facing such a weapon. Targeted. Louis looked at his only two howitzers left, which were both increased versions with high damage. But the damage caused was not enough for the Iron Overlord. "I still have two," Louis said in a deep voice. No matter how quickly he reacted, he cursed in a low voice, "Whatever, use it early to enjoy it early, and use it to blow up graves later." Salamander fired two howitzers. But this time there was not such a good distance, and he was intercepted by the Iron Overlord in mid-air. It was nothing but scorching black on the arm of the Iron Overlord. "Fuck!" Louis yelled. "It's useless," Tony, you can't even break through my outer armor. Obadiah smiled presumptuously, grabbed the broken rocks, and threw them at the Mark III flying in the sky. Mark III dodges left and right, but it often walks by the river, so its shoes are not wet. Boom! A fragment of a statue in the garden grazed Mark III's left leg. Chug! A series of arcs flickered, and Tony felt something was wrong. The left leg propulsion unit was destroyed, and the power was reduced by 56%. The voice of J.A.R.V.I.S seemed a bit cold. Ruthless. Tony didn't have time to think, and used the propulsion device in his palm to change his position, avoiding the rock that struck again. Ha 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 ha, run away, and when I catch you, I will crush your bones inch by inch. Obadiah seemed to have seen Tony and Louis die in his hands. While attacking the damaged Mark III, there is still power to deal with Louis' sneak attack. It's just that Scorpio's bullets are like scratching an itch, and they can't do much damage. Annoying bug. Obadiah slapped it, but Louis dodged it deftly. Good opportunity. Tony thought to himself when he saw the Iron Tyrant turning his head. The armor on Mark III's chest and shoulders opened, and countless small missiles aimed at the head of the Iron Bully. Like a goddess scattering flowers. Numerous small missiles dragging orange tail flames bombarded the Iron King's head. Bang bang bang! The sound of explosions one after another made Louis very happy to hear them. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Louis immediately replaced G3X with Cerberus and switched to Gatling mode. 120 specially made armor-piercing projectiles were fired at the center of the explosion. Vase! 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 Under the cover of the sound of the explosion, there was a penetrating sound that was so subtle that it was inaudible. It works! Louis was delighted. Trait armor-piercing projectiles can penetrate Iron Overlord's defenses. But the black shadow rushing towards Louis broke through all obstacles, and with one blow, the G3X that had no time to dodge was sent flying a long distance away. Louis! Tony yelled as he saw the G3X being knocked into the air. Take care of yourself. Obadiah ignored Louis, who was knocked into the air, and his next target was Tony. Guys flying around are such a nuisance. Tony dodged the Iron Tyrant's attack, but under the Iron Tyrant's marking, there was no way to see Louis' situation. It's daytime, it hurts a bit. Louis grinned in pain, and crawled out of someone's swimming pool. Even with the swimming pool as a buffer, Louis still fell hard enough. Looking at the battle in the distance, it might fly more than 100 meters. How to deal with such a terrifying Iron Overlord? Louis had some headaches, and Tony couldn't last long if he let the Iron King and Tony fight like this. G3X's internal communication suddenly rang while Louis was thinking. Mr. Louis, I have rushed to Mel Street, where are you now? Who is Tony fighting? Ethan's voice suddenly appeared. Louis's eyes lit up. The overclocking shock sword was developed to deal with enemies that could not break through, and it was just used to deal with the Iron Overlord. Ultra-high frequency particle vibration cutting, even if you are an iron bastard, you will be stewed today. Louis sent a location to Ethan, and it didn't take long for Ethan to feel it. The upgraded version of the UHF oscillating sword is larger than the original one, but it looks very intimidating. Thanks, Ethan. Louis said with a smile, and then returned to the battlefield again. Ethan stood there dumbfounded. Just now, Mr. Tony said thank you to me? It's really rare. Under the siege and interception of Iron Bully, Mark III was on the verge of falling, and its energy was dropping sharply. Tony was ready for a tactical evacuation. But on the battlefield, the appearance of the blue and silver figure made Tony stunned for a moment. Hee, this little bug is really big. It's not dead yet. What's in your hand? A toy. Obadiah sneered. Seeing the UHF oscillating sword in Louis' hands, he was even more dismissive. So many weapons are useless, do you really think it will be enough to change to a sword? Tony, get out of the way, this is a battle between me and this bastard. Louis said coldly. Then let me see what you are capable of. Obadiah shouted angrily, and rushed towards Louis. G3X holds the sword in front of his chest, proudly in the world. Louis' voice was floating, full of ancient rhymes, and said, I have a sword that can cut off the sun, moon, stars, and even old bastards. In the next sentence, the painting style changed again. The labor and management said that they will crush your ashes, and they must take your ashes today. Chapter 33 Sorry, I lied to you. The energy of G3X is fully poured into the ultra-high-frequency vibration sword, Destroyer. Buzz buzz. The ultra-high-frequency earthquake sound almost pierced the eardrum. That's it. Louis felt the saboteur in his hand with satisfaction. This was the fighting sword he had envisioned. The ultra-high-frequency particle vibration is enough to shred the turtle shell in front of it. Obadiah controlled the Iron Overlord and rushed towards Louis. Coming up is a big flying cover. The huge body crushed down in an extremely terrifying posture, trying to crush Louis. End this ridiculous farce, you are dead. Obadiah said cruelly. During the synchronous operation, the two fists smashed hard towards the ground. Under G3X, Louis stared coldly at the inside of the Iron Overlord. The cold voice was particularly piercing. Overload mode, on. As the center of energy, arc reactor, the internal energy is constantly absorbed by G3X. The G3X took the lessons of the G3, and Louis' overload mode for pure armor was added. Every time the G3X advances, it will crush the ground under its feet. It is hard to imagine how powerful the energy contained in it is. The Iron Overlord fell from the sky, aimed at G3X and smashed it down. Boom! The huge amounts of shock waves swayed everything around. It's clean now, the damn bugs are gone. Obadiah sneered. In his opinion, no living thing could survive such an attack. This is an attack with dozens of tons. At this moment, Louis' cold voice made Obadiah's heart feel cold. It seems that you are a little too happy, and you want to attack me at such a slow speed. Louis said with a sneer. G3X was still on the right side of the Iron Overlord this second, but appeared on the left side of the Iron Overlord the next second. The speed is so fast that it is difficult for Obadiah to lock the position of Louis. Tony, who was flying in the sky, saw the speed of G3X in a short period of time in his eyes. 100 meters 2.63. Tony has no doubt that the G3X with this speed can catch the slow-starting Mark III in a short time. That's the case with Obadiah at the moment. Molested crazily by Louis, every attack landed in the air. Even if he predicted Louis' position, Louis would change his direction in time to avoid it. The saboteur slashed constantly on Iron Tyrant's body, making clanking and colliding sounds. It's useless. If you can't destroy the Iron King's defense, I'm invincible. Obadiah laughed. G3X stopped his figure and landed on Iron Bully's head. Louis said lightly, "Oh, is it?" Then, a sword fell, as simple and easy as piercing butter with a hot knife and fork. Under the ultra-high-frequency vibration sword, Iron Overlord's defense became vulnerable. There was a trace of panic on Obadiah's face, and he shouted in a panic, "No, this is impossible, my Iron Overlord is invincible, how is this possible?" With the fall of Louis' sword, all the attacks that were considered ineffective before all broke out. Each of Louis's previous swords had spare power, in order to completely disintegrate the Iron Overlord. With large file size small parts fall. The entire Iron Overlord seemed to be dismembered. The control room was also found by Louis. The scarlet compound eyes looked at Obadiah coldly. With boundless killing and blood. "No, Louis, you can't do this, I'm your uncle, you can't do this to me." Obadiah panicked. He couldn't figure out why he failed. But now, he needs to think about his life. Compromise. Louis didn't speak, just watched Obadiah's performance indifferently. Tony also fell down, looking at Obadiah, not knowing what to say for a moment. "Are you here to persuade me?" Louis didn't turn his head, but felt Tony's arrival. Obadiah said no. Even if there is no blood relationship, Obadiah has helped Tony stabilize the Stark industry for so many years. There is hard work without credit. "Put him in jail and he'll never come out again," Tony said. "Hee hee." Louis sneered, and said mockingly, "Really? Yes, I will never come out again after I go to prison. Please, send me to prison." Obadiah said fearfully. "Okay, then I'll send you to jail." G3X's scarlet compound eyes dimmed, and Louis turned and left. Tony is also about to leave, and the police will come to deal with it soon. Seeing the backs of the two leaving, Obadiah breathed a sigh of relief, but the next second, scarlet blood eyes looked back at him. Obadiah felt that his soul was about to be frozen. But he couldn't speak. Cerberus Vulcan mode combined with Scorpio, a small rocket accurately hit Obadiah, who was full of fear. The flames of the explosion devoured everything. Obadiah's final mouth is obviously to ask, "Why? Aren't you ready to let me go?" Louis whistled frivolously and said cheerfully, "Sorry, I lied to you." Before Tony could react, Louis' attack had already destroyed Obadiah. Tony looked at Louis and didn't speak, but felt that Louis was a little strange at this moment. "I have no intention of leaving enemies for myself." Louis showed his usual playboy kind smile. Ethan, who was in the distance, almost fainted when he saw the battle. "It's really scary." Louis walked by Ethan, suddenly remembered something, and said to Ethan, "Ethan, help me gather Mr. Obadiah's ashes." "Hey? What? Why?" Ethan couldn't turn the corner. "I said that if I want to crush his ashes, I must lift his ashes. This is a man's promise," Louis said easily. Tony and Ethan were left dumbfounded. "After killing someone, you still want to throw his ashes away? You are going too far." Chapter 34. For example, Tesseract. A huge explosion occurred in Mel Block. Suspected unknown creatures are fighting. In the huge explosion, 17 people were killed, 37 people were seriously injured, and 63 people were slightly injured. Director of Stark Industries, Obadiah Stein, has confirmed his death in this incident. The National Strategic Defense Attack and Logistic Support Agency announced its involvement in this matter. Foreign terrorist group, the Ten Commandments Gang, announced that it is responsible for this matter. Snapped. Louis turned off the TV, and since the morning, a series of relevant news has been played on the TV in a loop. It's all about yesterday's fight. But the most important information was all blocked by SHIELD. Louis couldn't believe that no one had photographed his battle with the Iron King. But it didn't spread, which means that the government officially intervened in this matter. J.A.R.V.I.S. Where's Tony? Why didn't I see him? Louis arrived at the laboratory, but Tony was not in the laboratory. There is only one damaged Mark III in the laboratory, and Ethan. Mr. Louis, because of Mr. Obadiah's death, the Master needs to hold a press conference to express some sadness. The issue of Obadiah's shares also needs to be dealt with by the Master. Louis's eyes lit up. Obadiah's shares, this is a good thing. However, as Tony closed the Weapons Research and Development Department. With regard to the equity in Obadiah's hands, many people maintain a wait-and-see attitude. It's probably going to be auctioned by then. Louis looked at the G3X that had gone through a hard fight yesterday, and the saboteur had been completely scrapped. When facing a tortoise shell like the Iron Overlord, even the ultra-high-frequency vibration sword is still powerless. So in the overload mode, although the G3X can be easily eliminated, the original material cannot withstand such energy intensity. After completing the last blow yesterday, the fighting career is completely over. Louis sighed helplessly. The strength of G3X was still a little weaker. You need to build stronger armor yourself. Moreover, research and development on nanoscale materials also needs to be started. Louis didn't want to give him a minute or two to put on his armor before the next battle. Click. The door of the laboratory was opened. Tony walked in, looking a little uncomfortable. "What's the matter, Tony? Will the reporter be upset?" Louis asked with a smile. The reporter meeting was very pleasant. Pepper's speech was well written, except that the word count was a bit too long, but I was entangled by a strange guy. Tony said helplessly. Did they call themselves the National Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Agency? Louis guessed more or less. Just know Phil Coulson they won't give up, especially after what happened yesterday was covered up by SHIELD. Fury would definitely notice himself and Tony. Beep. The doorbell at the gate rang. There are two strange gentlemen at the door. J.A.R.V.I.S. called out the surveillance camera at the door. In addition to Phil Coulson, there is another one that Louis is very familiar with. Fury. Louis smiled, and suddenly he missed Fury's mare fuck a little bit. However, in the original world line, only Phil Coulson came alone, and now that Fury is also here, it may still be useful to pry the world line by himself. J.A.R.V.I.S. Blacklist these two, Tony said quickly. He hadn't met Fury, but Phil Coulson had been pestering him all morning, and Tony wasn't exactly a nice guy. No, J.A.R.V.I.S. Let the two of them come in, I'm very interested in them. Louis said. Tony glanced at Louis, wondering what Louis was thinking. But the previous few incidents all represented Louis's correctness. Tony chose to trust Louis this time, and said again, "Okay, let the two of them come in, and then they will be blacklisted." Well, Tony is still Tony. The door is opened. Phil Coulson and Fury walked into Tony's house for the first time. "How big is this place?" Phil Coulson said. "At least we're off to a good start." Fury breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, this Tony is not a willful person. Fury didn't know that the not-so-willful person in his mouth had already blacklisted him. In the living room, Tony looked sternly at the two people who walked in. "Let me introduce myself, my name is Phil Coulson and this is Fury, our chief," said Phil Coulson. "Sorry for the trouble my staff caused you earlier." Fury smiled and naturally sat across from Tony. "Tell me, what do you want to see me for?" Tony was a little impatient. If it wasn't for Louis' request, Tony wouldn't be chatting with these two people here. He and Pepper were going to have lunch together at noon. "We would like to invite the two armored warriors from yesterday's battle on Mel Street to join us." Fury cut to the chase. "We will hide our identities for you, no matter who they are. We will not come to harass you." Fury felt that he was very sincere. You know, it took a lot of effort to suppress the information of Tony and Louis. "Sorry, I don't need it, and I don't want to join any organization. If there is nothing else, I think you can leave first. I have an appointment at noon." Tony issued an eviction order. Fury's face froze. How could there be such a negotiation? "Won't you listen to my other conditions? Why don't you bargain for a price? Please, please bargain." When the two sides were in a stalemate, Louis suddenly came out, showing a kind smile. Phil Coulson immediately felt a chill. Last time, he was bewitched by this smile and thrown into the trash. "Tony, I'm very interested in them. I wonder if you can let me chat with them. You can go on a date first." Louis sat on the sofa with a box in his arms. Tony glanced at Louis, not knowing what the hell he was up to. However, the date is coming up, and Tony has no time to waste here. He took a suit of clothes and rushed out. Hearing Tony's car leave, Louis eyed Fury and Phil Coulson. Fury felt like he was being watched by a poisonous snake, ready to bite him anytime, anywhere. "I don't know how much you are going to pay to invite us?" Louis asked with a smile. "We can help you hide," Fury repeated. But was interrupted by Louis. "Fuck, just a group of Hydra undercover agents inside your SHIELD. Still hidden? Am I afraid I won't die fast enough? I don't need to hide, and neither does Tony. I think I need something practical. Like? Fury asked tentatively. For example, the tesseract left by my father back then. Louis showed a slight smile, propped his neck, and took a pen to write and draw on the paper, with the shape of tesseract on it. Fury and Phil Coulson only felt the surroundings were icy cold, and the Louis in front of him seemed to be omniscient and omnipotent. Tesseract is indeed what Howard Stark left behind. But why would Louis know so much? What else does he know? Chapter 35 Fury's Decision. Louis sketched what the tesseract would look like on paper. I also signed an autograph. Louis Stark smiles. Fury really wanted to say Merfolk right now. Who the hell wants to see your bracketed smile? Fury and Phil Coulson's hearts went cold when Louis drew the tesseract. They knew that Louis had definitely confirmed the position of tesseract. You too, I've been looking for this thing recently. If you find it, please let me know. I will be very grateful to you. Louis pushed the paper in front of Fury. Fury didn't dare to take the drawing paper for a while. He took a deep breath and pretended to be deep and said, "Okay, Mr. Louis, if we find it, we will contact you." Fury didn't dare to stay here for long. He felt a threat from Louis, which was unprecedented. Fury and Phil Coulson were about to leave in a hurry, but when they walked out the door, Louis also came out, handed the drawing paper to Fury, and said with a smile, "I'll give you this blueprint, you can look for it according to it. By the way, it has my autograph on it, it's very valuable, yes, don't lose it." After all, the door was mercilessly closed. Fury wanted to tear up the piece of paper and throw it on the ground, stomping on it a few times. Who the hell wants your autograph? Labor and Management as SHIELD Director, isn't your signature worth more than yours? But Fury chose to put it in his coat pocket in the end. Walking down the street, Phil Coulson was a little shivering. Louis brought too much pressure. Phil Coulson, Fury, why does that Louis know about the tesseract? Fury, Mom, fuck, you ask me, who am I going to ask? Phil Coulson, could it be the clue left by Howard Stark? Fury paused, apparently thinking about what Phil Coulson had just said. It is possible, otherwise there is no way to explain his understanding of tesseract. Howard used tesseract to build 2 large arc reactors. Maybe Stark Brotherhood surprised us. Fury's eyes lit up. Tesseract is placed in S.H.I.E.L.D, but no one has been able to study it thoroughly. The biggest utilization was nothing more than Howard Stark's sustainable energy plan back then. Although it failed, 2 large arc reactors remained. If, using the tesseract as a transaction, the Stark brothers were absorbed into S.H.I.E.L.D. Fury suddenly felt like a fucking genius. Come on, Phil Coulson, let's go back to Louis, and I can agree to Louis' terms. Fury said quickly. Phil Coulson hadn't figured it out yet, so he could only follow behind Fury. When walking back to Tony's house, Phil Coulson looked at the car outside and fell into thought. Phil Coulson, Director, we have a car, why did we walk back? Fury, mad fuck. 2 people rang the doorbell, but their identities had already been blacklisted, so no matter how they pressed it, it would not affect the people inside. Why is there no one? Fury's hands were sore from pressing. Phil Coulson, come on, keep pressing. Going away? Phil Coulson asked. Impossible, the Silver Lightning is still parked at the door, Louis is definitely at home. Fury was sure, thinking that this was Louis trying to make himself suffer. As for Louis, he is now in the laboratory to start researching his next set of armor. He doesn't have dates like Tony does, and Louis feels pressed for time. Kamen Rider's armor can basically be made artificially, but what Louis requires is power, which is more powerful than G3X. So, Louis hit on the space gem idea. This will be the key to the next set of Kamen Rider. Louis was thinking while holding the small box and preparing to go out. Then I saw Fury and Phil Coulson ringing the doorbell, sweating profusely. "Hey, what are you doing? Should I report to warn you of disturbing the people?" Louis asked with a smile. "Louis, I think your doorbell is broken, it won't make any sound," Fury kindly explained. Jingle. Louis pressed the doorbell and said, "Isn't there no problem?" Okay, let me go, I'm going out now." Louis pushed open the door, holding the small box and preparing to leave. Fury and Phil Coulson followed Louis. Fury wanted to get close and asked, "Louis, what's in this little box of yours? Is it related to you, Director Nick Fury?" Louis asked back, "Just say what you have to say, don't test me, I'm not interested in other things except Tesseract." "We can hand over the Tesseract to Mr. Louis," Fury said immediately. "Director." Phil Coulson was a little confused, they didn't say that before. "Didn't you agree with Louis' research on Tesseract? How to say change?" Louis glanced at Fury thoughtfully, and his expression brightened immediately. "Director Nick Fury, get in the car for a minute, I think we can have a good chat." "Mr. Phil Coulson, there is no room for a third person in my car. If you are willing to make a mistake, I have no problem with it in the trunk." "Phil Coulson, you go back first," Fury said to Phil Coulson. Phil Coulson obeyed, but said, "Stay safe, Director." Silver Lightning took Fury away, leaving behind Phil Coulson who couldn't figure it out. In the car, Louis said casually, "Now can you tell me about your request, Director Nick Fury?" Chapter 36 Louis, do what I say. Louis wouldn't believe that Fury would be so kind as to give him the Tesseract. Even if Tesseract is just a decoration in S.H.I.E.L.D, Fury can boast a good price for it. "Louis, the Tesseract can be given to you, but you must guarantee that you will always be loyal to SHIELD. After a series of quick and short breaks, Louis drifted the car and stopped steadily on the side of the road. "You can get out of the car, Director Nick Fury," Louis said with a cold face. "A Tesseract wants to sell itself? Dream it." "Wait," Fury said immediately. He panicked. He felt he had misjudged Louis. Louis is not the kind of person who can be bound by a Tesseract. In the final analysis, Tesseract is just a trading item. S.H.I.E.L.D is in the hands, and a large amount of money is spent on research every year. This is not cost-effective, and even dragged down the development of S.H.I.E.L.D originally. Louis looked at Fury coldly, he was waiting for Fury's explanation. "I just invite you to join S.H.I.E.L.D, but the Tesseract is not your personal property, you can only have it in your hands for research. If S.H.I.E.L.D needs it, you must return it immediately. When S.H.I.E.L.D is in trouble, I need you to do your best to help us." Fury said a lot of good and bad in one breath, and he was really worried that Louis wouldn't listen and just leave. This is the trading condition he had originally thought about, but he changed his mind temporarily. He wanted to see how much Louis valued Tesseract. "But I didn't expect that Louis would not play his cards according to common sense." Louis narrowed his eyes, a smile spreading in his eyes. "When is Director Nick Fury going to send Tesseract to me?" Louis asked. "As soon as possible, bring this thing out, even I need a lot of applications and procedures," Fury said. "Then I'll wait for you to hand me the Tesseract. May I ask, what are you going to use Tesseract for?" This is something Fury is very concerned about. "Arc reactor can't use the palladium element. I need a new element to replace it. I heard that my father found the new element in Tesseract. I want to find it and see if I can artificially synthesize it." Louis made up an excuse. It's true, and it's something Fury knows. So Fury didn't have much doubt when he heard Louis' explanation. Sure enough, Howard left something behind. Fury was still guessing that what Louis knew came from Howard's notes. Silver Lightning galloped to the cliffs by the sea. Along the way, Fury is telling Louis everything about Shield. Louis, who knows the plot, actually prefers to call it the story of director Nick Fury and a group of Hydra undercover agents. Fury watched Louis solemnly take out the small box, feeling a little puzzled. In the meantime, Louis put on his gloves, grabbed a handful from the small box, and threw it into the distance. The grey and white matter drifted away with the wind, slowly drifting into the distance. What are these things? Fury suspected that Louis was spreading some kind of biological weapon. What? It's ashes. Director Nick Fury, would you like some? Louis invited with a smile. Whose ashes? Louis, did you kill someone? Fury felt that one head and two were big for a moment. Isn't it true that the newly recruited members cause trouble for themselves? Obadiah, you shouldn't pursue the death of an extremist, right? As I said, I will raise his ashes, and I will never break my promise. Louis felt a little tired from lifting, so he simply threw the small box down the cliff. Fury had already scolded Majah Fake countless times in his heart. You are so crazy. If you say raise ashes, raise ashes? Also deliberately ran to the cliff to Yang? Life needs a sense of ritual, do you need it too for raising ashes? Looking at Louis's kind face, Fury silently repeated in his heart, this is all an illusion. It's all an illusion. Louis is an out-and-out ruthless guy. Obadiah deserves to die, why are you messing with him? Fury felt a little regretful, maybe he shouldn't have agreed to hand over the Tesseract to Louis. Louis drove the Silver Lightning back home, and Fury? Let him take a taxi home by himself, the Trigger Wing headquarters and his home are not in the same direction. Tony hadn't returned yet, and Louis was already vaguely expecting Fury to hand the Tesseract into his hands. Ethan, let's develop new armor, I have a good idea. Louis shouted loudly. Before the arrival of the Tesseract, Louis was ready to build the foundation of the armor. Ethan immediately ran out of the lab. Really, Mr. Louis, new armor? Ethan has never seen armor updated so quickly. Even Mr. Tony needs a lot of thinking. But I didn't expect that Louis' armor said that it was built, and it didn't even need to stop. Ethan suddenly felt that Louis was much stronger than Tony. Mr. Louis, Tony seems to be in trouble. The voice of J.A.R.V.I.S sounded, and the TV was automatically turned on, tuned to a live interview program. The subject of the interview turned out to be Tony, who was dating Pepper in the restaurant. What's going on? Louis' expression changed. Countless reporters surrounded Tony and Pepper. Mr. Tony, someone exposed the three robots fighting, is this a new weapon from Stark Industries? Mr. Tony, please explain the death of Mr. Obadiah. Mr. Tony, is it certain that Obadiah was testing these weapons at the time? In the restaurant, under the watchful eyes of everyone, Tony showed his usual smile and said, actually, ahem, I have a showdown, I am Iron Man. Everyone present, and everyone who watched the live interview were shocked. Even Pepper looked at Tony in surprise. P.S. Louis' new armor is coming, guess who it is? It's actually better to guess. Subsequent battle armor updates will speed up, and some readers said that they will not wait until the time of the devil in their lifetime. It's all nonsense, you will definitely get it in your lifetime. Chapter 37 Louis's Sense of Urgency, Series of Armor. Snapped. Louis turned off the TV and closed his eyes. Ethan wanted to continue watching, but seeing Louis' appearance, he still didn't dare to speak. Louis's mind is a little messed up, he is trying his best to change the world line, but it will always be corrected by the world. After all, he was too weak. If it is strong enough, the world line can definitely be distorted. Slap. Slap. Louis' fingers tapped on the table again and again. This made Ethan feel flustered. Didn't you mean to build new armor? Why is Louis exuding such a terrible breath? In Louis's mind, countless sets of Kamen Rider's armor flashed in his mind. Bring some paper here, Louis said suddenly. Ethan finally heaved a sigh of relief. Now he can finally not have to endure Louis' arrogance. Louis in silence made Ethan feel uneasy. It was like a sleeping volcano that could erupt at any time. Ethan suddenly misses the usual naughty and mischievous Louis. Louis took the printing paper that Ethan brought over, and wrote and drew on it. Out of curiosity, Ethan leaned over to take a look, but with this one glance, Ethan never moved his eyes again. On paper, a Kamen Rider who is completely different from the G3 series appears on paper. You can feel the power of this suit of armor just by looking at it. Is this the new armor to be built? Ethan asked. But Louis didn't answer. One picture was finished. Swish swish swish. Louis wrote down the English letters FUIS on the paper, and then left his signature. This is just the first one. The second one. Third. Each one is a different Kamen Rider armor, but Ethan can vaguely feel that it is from the same series. Could it be that Louis is planning to create a brand new set of armor this time, making it into a series to deal with different battles? Ethan didn't ask, and now Louis was so engrossed that he couldn't listen to anything at all. FUIS. Kaiza. Delta. Siga. Orga. 5 names, the same series of armor designs were held in Ethan's hands tremblingly. These things are so important that Ethan feels his hands are indescribably heavy. These are 5 armors, Ethan stared at Louis dumbfounded. If Tony is a genius in weapon making, then Louis is the god behind the genius. Such a terrifying creation ability, Louis could not imagine what kind of terrifying power these armors would have after they were manufactured. But there is no doubt that they are definitely the most powerful, not weaker than G3X. Ethan swallowed and wanted to speak, but felt his body trembling and couldn't even speak. His eyes were fixed on Louis's movements. I thought Louis wanted to stop writing, but Louis continued. What is it today? Inspiration burst? Compared with the Kamen Rider armor of the same series, Louis's next Kamen Rider looks like another style. It's still an extremely simple style of painting, but it looks a little weird. There is an energy spar on the head, which seems to have other meanings. The face is designed into a series of stripes, forming a bumpy shape. Decade. This is its name. Then came the next sheet, and it was another style. Ethan felt like he was going to pass out, and Louis had a big explosion today. In madness. Unscrupulously swaying his ability. Crazy, the world is absolutely crazy. God came down here today, and I saw it with my own eyes. Ethan prayed to God. Louis finally put away the last one, and then folded it by himself and put it in his pocket. Hearing Ethan talking about God, Louis sneered and said, if there is a God in this world, then he will definitely destroy me first. Don't talk nonsense, Mr. Louis, God will hear. Ethan reminded. Then let him hear it, he has already noticed me. Louis laughed. If you haven't noticed, you won't be able to toggle the twisted world line. Which armor shall we build first? Ethan felt that Louis was playing a little temper again, so he simply skipped this topic and moved to Kamen Rider's armor. Build FUIS first, I need it, Louis said. His eyes turned to FUIS's drawing. Among the 5 belts, the most powerful should be Delta, but Louis still prefers FUIS out of feelings. Moreover, Louis is more comfortable with FUIS's fighting style. The 555 belt is actually the belt that Louis was planning to create at the beginning. It has not been built due to many obstacles before. This is one of the most suitable armors for mechanical building, and it is also one of the armors with low requirements. It's just that Louis has been waiting for the space gem, so the development and creation time has been postponed. The belts of the 555 series rely on the power of photon blood, and all the big moves have the effect of space locking. Louis has been looking for a substitute, but space power is the key that cannot be replaced. Ethan finished praying and hugged the 5 blueprints tightly in his arms. It will be his Bible. Need to use it? Ethan wondered. But let's take Louis' sense of urgency as a rainy day. Not every time you are so unlucky, you will encounter an enemy like Iron Overlord. Ethan still overestimated the peace of this world. He doesn't know what kind of crisis the Earth will face in the next few months. Chapter 38, The transaction is completed. Mr. Lewis, what are you going to do with this dignity? Ethan looked at the Kamen Rider armor that was listed separately and asked. Lewis drew 7 pieces of armor, 5 of the same series were in his hands, 2 inside and outside, and 1 was put away by Lewis himself. Another decade was taken out by Lewis alone. This. Tentative. Ethan nodded, then entered the laboratory and started the full image simulation. Lewis looked at Decade on the coffee table with a smile on the corner of his mouth. If Decade is the destroyer of the world, then I will be the destroyer of this world for a while. No, Fury, I still think that's an outrageous request. Fury returned to the Trickerv headquarters, but had handling issues with the Tesseract. It was immediately stopped by countless researchers. They have been obsessed with the mystery of Tesseract all these years, and now they are suddenly told that Tesseract has given me the result of someone else. How can this group of arrogant researchers accept it? All of them started to make a fuss. Tesseract is here to stay. No matter who he is, he can come to study, but he can't take it away. The Tesseract is ours, and no one can take it away. If Tesseract wasn't there, I wouldn't need to be here. I think so too. Everyone was talking, and if Fury wasn't around, they were all ready to quarrel. Tesseract is really important, and the powerful energy contained in it is simply obsessive. Fury quietly watched the group of scientific researchers quarreling, intellectuals arguing no differently from black rap on the street. It doesn't sound as good as my own merfolk. This group of scientific researchers discovered something was wrong after arguing. Fury didn't say a word, just watched them quarrel quietly. The sound gradually diminishes and finally cuts to nothing. Everyone is looking at Fury, wondering what Director Nick Fury, who has been in office until now, has to say. It's all over. Continue talking. Why are not you talking? The Tesseract is yours? Who gave you the guts to say that? You have been here for so many years, studying Tesseract, what have you researched? Fury glared at this group of useless researchers. If they hadn't been unable to research useful things, Fury would not have thought of making a deal with Lewis. I have researched and used Tesseract to produce constant energy. A researcher whispered. Damn fuck. Fury finally couldn't help but curse. You can get out of S.H.I.E.L.D. from today, arc reactor. Stark Industries created it decades ago, what do you want? Before Fury finished speaking, several security personnel came over and dragged the researcher out immediately. Such waste, staying here is also a waste of research funds. No, you can't do that to me, I sweated for SHIELD. You fucking wasted money on S.H.I.E.L.D, fuck off, scum. Fury showed no mercy, and after dealing with an early bird, Fury's eyes scanned the audience. No one dared to look at him, everyone hoped that Fury's anger would not be vented on themselves. Who else wants to leave? Those who are going to leave without Tesseract can pack their things. Fury said with a sneer. But no one dared to speak. Just kidding, they are all agents of Hydra, how could they leave their undercover place? Humph. A bunch of useless things. Fury didn't even bother to look at this group of useless researchers, so he turned around and was about to leave. The deal between him and Lewis will be concluded soon, and S.H.I.E.L.D. will also have an extra superhero. Fury has already felt the malice from the world, and many supernatural phenomena require an existence like Lewis to solve them. Huge amounts of vans drove up to Louis's doorstep. Lewis has been waiting here for a long time. This was informed by Fury in advance that certain materials are required to store Tesseract. Fury simply sent a copy of these materials. Louis temporarily cleared out an empty space in the basement for the Tesseract. Blue Tesseract, which is as clear as crystal, is carried in a toolbox. It is made of cosmic ore, which is very hard and can handle the power of Tesseract well. Looking at the installed Tesseract, Louis finally breathed a sigh of relief. Don't come into close contact with this thing. It's not clear what danger it is, but it's better to be cautious about this kind of mysterious object. Fury reminded. Don't worry, I know its power very well. Louis admired the charm of Tesseract. At this moment, Fury would not have imagined that the space gem, one of the 6 singularities of the universe, is contained in the Tesseract. If I knew, I'm afraid I wouldn't give it to myself so easily. This is the treasure of the level universe. Louis, I hope that the deal between us, you can abide by. Fury wanted to say a few more words to remind Louis, but was interrupted impatiently by Louis. I know, Ethan, see off. Louis doesn't have time for Fury, he needs to dig into the space gem. Moreover, what is in your hands is your own, do you want to take it back? Dream. Poor director Nick Fury was under Ethan's gaze and had no choice but to leave. When Tony came back, he watched rows of big trucks leave the house with a dazed expression. The director of the bureau before gave him a strange look. Did I provoke him? Tony wondered. Chapter 39 Absorb Space Power? Louis, why is the house such a mess? As soon as Tony got home, he saw the mess in the house, as if it had been robbed. Louis. Ethan. What exactly did you do? J.A.R.V.I.S, are you there? Tony yelled, but no one answered, not even Jarvis. At the moment J.A.R.V.I.S is being taken away by Louis as a coolie. For Tesseract's huge amount of calculations, J.A.R.V.I.S entered a snail-like forward speed. Sorry, Mr. Louis, the amount of calculation is too huge. It is like a galaxy. Although there are regularities, the calculation data is at least more than 1 trillion times. J.A.R.V.I.S said apologetically. Louis frowned, he knew it would not be so easy. Although J.A.R.V.I.S is already an artificial intelligence, it is still very small for calculating the singularity of the universe. Collect data first. Louis said helplessly. With the help of J.A.R.V.I.S, the progress of Tesseract data collection is very fast. Tony opened the door to the lab, but it was empty. Please don't tell me, I'll just go out on a date and you're all abducted by aliens. Tony talked to himself. Start looking for traces of Louis and others. Eventually it was in the basement, where the lowest floor with lights was found. The pale blue light almost filled the entire underground space. Even with the isolation of many special materials, the power of Tesseract is still spreading constantly. Slowly affects the surrounding space. Louis and Ethan are in a corner, collecting data for Tesseract. Includes the progress of Tesseract's influence on the surrounding environment. That force of space is slowly affecting the surrounding objects, although the speed is very slow, it only takes decades to complete the infiltration. This proves Louis' guess that the special element in Tesseract is also a radioactive element. Louis, what are you doing? Why is my basement like this? Tony also wanted to confront Louis and Ethan. But when he saw the Tesseract, his whole body sank. Just like everyone, Tesseract will be attracted by it at first sight. This is the charm of Tesseract. Where did this thing come from? Tony was shocked. He clearly judged that Tesseract has infinite research value. The question is, where did this thing come from? It's the director in the morning. I agreed to join his organization, and then I got this. Louis didn't hide his behavior. Sooner or later Tony will join. There's no way Fury would let a superhero out on the folks. Tony was stunned, he had never thought of going on a date, and then missed it. Women are really a beauty. Louis, if I join, will they give me one too? Tony asked. For the tesseract that Louis bought, Tony felt that it was too much money. Is it difficult for this organization to be treated so well? Tesseract, free to join? Louis froze for a moment. He didn't expect Tony to ask such a question. He pretended to be silent, thought carefully, and then said seriously, how about you try? Ah! Fury sneezed far away in the Tricurved Wing headquarters. The weather seems to be a bit cold recently. Tony finally gave up on the plan. After all, there can't be many such things in the world, and one is thankful. And the deal between Louis and S.H.I.E.L.D was a little hard for Tony to accept. He still prefers a bohemian life, luxury cars and beauties, and occasionally throwing coins for a carnival party. As for helping S.H.I.E.L.D, that's not on Tony's radar. Calculate the external energy release rate per second. Testing the strength of spatial diffusion of particles. Calculate the transformation rate of this energy for metal ores and alloys. Louis and Ethan recorded the data one by one. J.A.R.V.I.S is in charge of calculations. No one knew what Louis was going to do, even Ethan couldn't figure it out. What are you planning to do? Tony realized that he couldn't understand Louis' thoughts. The calculation of energy intensity and particle diffusion can also be understood. What is the operation of energy for the transformation of metal ore? Mr. Louis said that he is going to build new armor, which may be related to the new armor. Ethan helped explain. Louis was so preoccupied now that he didn't have time to recover from Tony's problems. He's in a weird state right now. I don't know if it was an illusion, but Louis felt that the weak space power released by the tesseract was invading and transforming his body. It cannot be called transformation, but it is somewhat similar to absorption. The power of these spaces has been absorbed by oneself. Louis was very curious about why this happened. Because in the notes of Fury and his cheap dad, Howard Stark, tesseract will not affect the human body. So, is my current situation a special case? Louis was lost in thought. Tony heard Ethan's answer and didn't continue to ask. In his opinion, Louis is definitely obsessed with developing armor, just like his previous self. He likes making weapons. There's nothing wrong with that. If you have time, take Louis to the beach to relax. Tony gave the underground layer to Louis by default, but he has no time to study tesseract yet. Today exposed his Iron Man identity. Tony decided to transform into Iron Man at night, and took Pepper around New York. Come to a sweet date again to make up for the unhappiness at noon. This is the life a hero should have. Chapter 40 Space Force. A dark and lonely basement. There is only a piece of quiet and peaceful blue light floating like an ocean. It has been transformed into a small laboratory by Louis. Specifically used to study tesseract. Tesseract is floating quietly, radiating the power of space gem all the time. Around the tesseract, all kinds of metal substances and alloys are sleeping quietly. They are absorbing the power of the tesseract, transforming their essence. Both Tony and Ethan had gone back to rest. Although Tony is very interested in tesseract, he is more interested in Vanity Fair. He also wore Iron Man armor to a dance yesterday. Also danced a classic Michael Jackson dance. Ethan has been busy with the Fuzzy's armor during this time, so he went to rest early. In the entire ocean of blue, only Louis was left alone. Louis could feel that tesseract's energy fluctuations were a bit too active today. In fact, when Louis is alone with tesseract, tesseract will have such changes. This made Louis think that he had some kind of connection with tesseract. Louis walked towards the tesseract in the center of the laboratory. The power of the space gem penetrated Louis' body, but stopped. He felt the gracious meaning expressed by tesseract. Louis tries to touch the tesseract, his first attempt at doing so. A steady stream of constant power poured into Louis' body from the tesseract. For the first time, the Thai particles buried deep in the earth, and the eye of Agamotto on the top of the Himalayas emitted light at the same time. Ancient One Mage's eyes seemed to penetrate the space, looking at the distant New York. These powers are just a drop of water to Wang Yang Hai. But for Louis, it nearly knocked him unconscious. Louis felt that his body was about to explode, and Tesseract also felt that Louis was in danger, so he reluctantly withdrew his strength. Louis lay on the ground panting heavily. Although feeling very mentally exhausted, Louis didn't feel that there was anything wrong with his body. On the contrary, Louis' body couldn't be better now. However, all he wanted now was to go back to bed and sleep. Just when Louis thought so, the laboratory floor, which was originally made of metal, suddenly turned into a grey mist. Louis went straight through the fog and fell. Louis didn't even have time to shout. "Pudgy!" I fell on the familiar bed. Louis woke up suddenly and looked around only to realize that this was his room. He braced himself up, thinking about going back to the laboratory. Immediately, a grey and misty space barrier appeared in front of him. Louis immediately passed through the space barrier, and appeared in the laboratory the next moment. The Tesseract exhaled a pleasant breath, as if celebrating Louis' use of his own power. This is Montoya's ability to pass through space barriers. Louis felt more and more strange, and his fit with the space gem seemed to be a bit high. This made Louis even more suspicious of his origin. Louis has some guesses in his mind, but it needs to be proved later. However, with the power of the space gem, the future Kamen Rider armor can be summoned directly. The Kamen Riders that Louis is currently creating are all self-wearing series. FUTIs or 555 series still lack the most important thing, that is photon blood. All the power of the 555 series comes from the photon blood, which is the blood power of Orphe Enoch. But Louis is going to transform this, replacing the photon blood with other powers, the stronger the better. So Louis had his eye on a target. Bruce Banner of at the moment is still in exile abroad, transformed into a green titan. As long as he is angry, he will have constant power. This is a biological evolution created by gamma rays. Louis was very envious of this. Photon blood is essentially the product of human evolution. An evolution like the Green Titan is naturally feasible. Moreover, if it is built in this way, as long as it is not the descendant of Louis, wearing these armors is courting death, and the life force will be sucked alive. Louis thinks that the future Kamen Rider armor can be equipped with such a detection system to prevent the armor from being used. You must know that FUTIs in the original drama is a classic 10,000 ride. Louis took down the FUTIs that had already been built. Because of the lack of photon blood, the power that could be exerted temporarily was only 1.5 times higher than that of G3X. This is the data that can crush the Mark3. But Louis is still not satisfied. FUTIs' real power is definitely more than that. Louis picked up FUTIs' supporting transformation device and entered the password. FUTIs instantly confirmed Louis' identity and began to cover Louis' body. In the original energy tube, the power of space in Louis' body was constantly added to it. Louis could clearly feel that FUTIs was getting stronger. Louis' initial thought was not wrong. The 555 series still relied more on their own strength to fight, and the armor was just a bonus. But the consumption of space power was too exhausting, and after a while, Louis felt uncomfortable. With a thought in Louis' mind, the FUTIs on his body immediately released the transformation and retracted into the space inside his body. It seems that you still need to use gamma rays to evolve your body, so that you can give full play to FUTIs' power. End of the chapter. Like and subscribe for more videos like this.